Hi everyone, I'm Luis from luisreview.com here doing a little bit of a video podcast. Uh, this is gonna be focused entirely on the Beatles Get Back. Now I did a video review of the first episode, so if you want to check that one out before this one. I'm gonna be focusing on this one on episodes 2 and 3 because I was not able to do a standalone video on episode 2. So I decided to just wait this morning, finish the third episode, and do one talking about the both episodes. This is with spoilers. I'm gonna go into details. So see it after you've seen it for yourselves, and we can comment on what we liked and all that. So now that I've seen it as a whole, I've seen the 3 episodes. On the overall kind of note, we have to be, as Beatles fans, thankful for what Peter Jackson did. I mean, he just took us as fans on a ride that was just amazing, just to see them as they were, because I don't think it was sugar coated in any way. Just to be in that period of time. I mean, and just to see the band, even with the difficulties, just still playing and making excellent music and having fun, even while going through the motions of what they were going through, because that is obvious. No one is denying that they were drifting apart, or they were already kind of apart, but were trying to get it together and maintain the Beatle thing. I think that is my main takeaway from this film. A lot of things that I thought were very wrong. My perspective has changed on a lot of things, and I'm gonna get into that at the end. But let's go to episode 2. I mean, episode 2. If we went back to episode 1, it ended on a very grim note, right, by George saying, "I'm leaving the group," and for me, it was really because, like I said, I knew he left the band, but I never saw it. I never heard it. I never saw John's reaction. So episode 2, it starts off as John, Paul, and Ringo are trying to see what they're gonna do about it. So the episode starts with Ringo and Paul waiting on John. The look on Paul's face on these scenes, I mean, it broke my heart, honestly, because now I believe that he was really trying to keep it together, not for his sake, like I think John once said. I think Paul loved his bandmates. I think he believed in the Beatles still, and I think his heart was really breaking, even if he had he himself being part of maybe a little bit of the problem with George especially. But I think he didn't mean it, which is where I think my perspective might have changed. Anyway, so that's not a highlight, but that's one thing that stood out for me, is Paul's really sadness about what was going on, and he's mature because he took it. Because right after that scene, John arrives and they go into this meeting where they didn't know microphones were installed. So years later, we're able to actually see them. Just the two men talking it out, and it was really incredible because they were both honest, and John really, I mean, he didn't say it meaningfully. I think he was just being honest, and Paul didn't respond in an immature way. He took it, he understood it. I think he tried then to compromise a little bit, which he told that he wasn't gonna compromise, hoping that the others would compromise with him, and I think they did in a way. Because you see later on, when Paul is making suggestions, I think the rest of the band just heard him and did it how he wanted. But anyway, I mean, to hear them talking, it was just so. I mean, I read it because I think some of that is on the Get Back book, but it's not the same as listening to them. I was glad that they were not fighting; they were just having a normal discussion between two friends about the differences, and this has some hard stuff, and but it was really shocking to hear it, and really kind of feeling something that I mean, the first kind of minutes of the second episode, as fans, it was really interesting, but I think hard to hear. I mean, but it's at the same time, it was a relief because they were not really shouting at themselves. And after that, they sat and they still have a laugh, even though they knew it was uncomfortable. What they went through, there was in the share, and they were having a laugh. And Michael Lindsay Hogg said that they should stop the documentary, and Lennon and McCartney were laughing. No, and now that is getting interesting. So it was, even with the turmoil, you can see that they were still friends and they loved each other, and it was just they still had their humor. So that was kind of interesting. So I remember. So after that, what John and Paul decided was to go to George and have a meeting with George. But George went to Liverpool and they had to wait until Wednesday. So what we see is footage of the three of them kind of rehearsing the numbers, going through them mainly. But the real joy of the episode 2 comes after George comes back. Now George comes back under some conditions, and the first condition is that they went back to the Apple Studios on Savile Row, which I think it did them good because they seemed a little bit more relaxed, or the overall environment kind of, when you see the film, it changes. And to see George back playing with the group, after that, the whole documentary becomes joyous to see, because I've never seen a lot of the footage, and you see John having fun with George, with Paul, jamming and talking and having fun, and that is what made this documentary for me kind of great. And we see a lot of songs that were not even on Let It Be, but they were the beginnings of what would be Abbey Road. Oh Darling, I think, is around. She's So Heavy, Polythene Pam, so which were all great. Another thing that stood out for me from episode 2 was the Apple Scrubs. George wrote a song about them, and they are interviewed on the film. There's two girls who are always on the Apple entrances, waiting for the band just to see them. They don't do nothing. They don't even talk to them. They just stand there. I mean, it's so weird. But yeah, it had to be there. And of course, one important aspect of episode 2 was the arrival of Billy Preston. Billy Preston changed a lot in the group because he gave them more freedom, because they had a permanent keyboard player and they could play even more live without, taking John out of the guitar, or George would play bass and Paul playing piano, vice versa. So Billy Preston was a great add to the band. I don't know how. I mean, they were talking about adding him permanently to the band. I don't know how I would have felt about that, because the Beatles to me were the four of them. But Billy Preston did do a lot for the tracks that he recorded. Don't Let Me Down and all those songs that he was a part of. He was amazing in it, and I think he would have been a great addition to the group. Anyway, if it would have happened. But now, let's go to episode 3, because episode 3 was really the jewel. Was really the I think it was the kind of episode that everyone was waiting for, because it was the roof and all that. But I think once it started, it was really great, and there were a lot of things that kind of catch my eye a little bit. And of course, we keep getting. I mean, the first scenes were heartwarming, because to see John playing around with Heather, Paul's stepdaughter, or Paul's daughter. I mean, it was so moving to see John under that light. Of course, the whole Beatles were playing around with the little girl. I think she added a little bit of spark to the room, and it was really beautiful to see John, especially John, under those acting like that, or in that light, playing around with a kid. I think that was kind of really good. And of course, one of the things, I'm not going in order. I'm going in the order that I remember. There was one bit where George was talking to John, and I think he was just giving the idea away that maybe they could do their solo projects and still be Beatles. Basically, what George was saying, and you feel for George that he had so many songs that he wanted to do an album and just and then come back to the Beatles. So just to get the songs that he had out, and John kind of like, I think he heard it. I don't know if at that time he had agreed to it or thought it was a good idea, but I think later on he did. But it's hard for George. George was the one in a tough situation, and when you listen to All Things Must Pass, you knew he had a right to get those songs out because the songs were just so great. Basically, other highlights of episode 3 were the discussions about what to do with the live performances. I found that very interesting. I think Paul really wanted to do something big. He really wanted to go back on stage. And I think he had a point that they were shy about going back because, and it's sad for the world, maybe, not the world, but the fans, because they had so many bad experiences when they toured that I think they never wanted to go back, especially George. And the thought of going back to that, I think, terrified him. And I think that was the biggest wall between them and doing a real live performance, which is what Paul wanted. Paul wanted them to go back. I don't think he wanted to tour, but he wanted to do a live show for real. But John had also great points, and we see that because they were rehearsing, but they were not ready to do 14 numbers, which is what John was saying. And they both had points. I think they both had points. And now let's go to the roof, and then I'm going to give my overall consensus about all the things that we saw. Okay, so the roof stuff was interesting. I never saw completely, I have to be honest. I only saw what was in the documentary, in the original Let It Be. But there were songs that I knew they sang on the rooftop that I never heard, like One of 1009. In Digapony, I might have heard it, but I haven't seen it in such a long time. And it was really interesting, and I loved the way it was shot, because what Peter Jackson did, he split the screen, so you can see all the cameras, so you can see all the angles of their performance, which made it very interesting, very cool, and this was good and bad because as a fan, you would have just wanted to see the performance. But as a documentary, it added a lot to have the street shots, and while they're performing, you could hear the crowd talking, and of course, it went through people who were mad because they were disturbing the peace, and others who were really glad because they were a fan of the Beatles. Some made me laugh, like Why the Roof? We wanted to see them, not hear them. Others said it was a stupid idea, but it wasn't a Beatles fan. Some old people complaining that they woke them up. And of course, the police went, and it just seems, I don't know, the police went up there to the roof and just stood there just to make sure they stopped playing. But it was really interesting. I really enjoyed the reactions of the crowd, and to see how they stopped London. I mean, only the Beatles would do that. I mean, just go on the roof and play, and they stopped the city, and the performances were really good. I mean, as a fan, I was looking at him now, with the way he sounded, maybe technology-wise, it sounded so great. But it was sad to me in a way because I felt like the band, if they would have gotten over the fear, or get the notion that they didn't have to tour like they used to, they could still do some live performances and do a film live, or I don't know, not do a massive tour like they did in the 60s, but do some kind of tour. They sounded great live. I mean, Get Back sounded great. I Got a Feeling sounded great. John's voice sounded amazing live, so did Paul's. I would have loved to listen to a George live song on the roof, but they repeated a few numbers, which was kind of like, okay. But it's like John said, they were not ready for a real live performance. So I think what they did was just mainly do a recording session on the roof, and people just happened to see them. But that turned out to be their last live performance. So it's a treasure to have and to see, and hopefully, if they release it on a DVD or Blu-ray as a special edition, you get the whole rooftop without the crowd. That would be interesting if they release it. I would buy it even if it's in Disney Plus. But that was so great to see, and I love the reaction of Paul when he looks back and see the cops. I mean, that was priceless. I mean, he was laughing because he was happy that it was happening, because it's something he said on the first episode that they should do it someplace where they get dragged off by the police, and it was happening, and it was funny, because the others were kind of like, what's going on? Paul was having fun, and he kept looking back at the police. And I love how he finished Get Back, by saying that that they were playing on the roofs and that they were going to get them arrested. I mean, the Beatles, just their humor, their way of just having fun. That's one of the things that make them great. Obviously, it's their music, but I think the thing of the roof is that the biggest takeaway is that it would have sounded great if they continued to do live performances of the newer songs. I mean, I know Sgt. Pepper would have been hard to play live, but the White Album could have been played live. Abbey Road, some songs could have been played live, and of course, Let It Be. And they could have played oldies, which would have been great. But we'll know what happened after that. Of course, they did Abbey Road, but that was the end of the band. And the ending of the documentary was so bittersweet. I mean, when the credits started rolling, I just left sad because I truly wanted to see more. And after that, it's like the time capsule ends and reality sets in. Or what happened after that? Of course, the breakup, Lennon being killed, George Harrison passing to this day. So it's like losing them all over again. I mean, not that tragically, sorry, but it's just how it felt for me at the moment. And when they started rolling the credits, but they kept rolling film of the Beatles recording Two of Us, The Long and Winding Road, and Let It Be. It just made it so bittersweet and amazing. It was really a great ride. I mean, this was something that I was anxiously waiting, I have to be honest, and I was not disappointed. I mean, all the episodes were 2+ hours. So you really, you must have gotten like 8 hours of the Beatles, like I've never seen them before. And I'm going to get into, because even in the Beatles anthology, a lot is said about Let It Be. And my perception has changed completely, especially my perception of Paul. I think whatever blame I used to place on him based on what John and George said, it's kind of weighing down because I felt pity for him. Not pity, but sadness, because I think he was suffering for real. I think he was really, really hurting about what was going on with the Beatles and the band breaking up. And it's seen. I mean, you cannot fake the eyes and the sadness that Paul had every time when George left and they were trying to solve that issue. After that, of course, everyone had more fun, which is another thing that I love seeing, because I don't think the original film highlighted that. It just felt like a grim, maybe that's the direction he wanted, I don't know. But I'm so thankful for Peter Jackson and what he did, because he kept it real. I mean, we see the struggle, we see the drifting apart, but at the same time, we see that they still love each other, that they enjoy each other's company, they enjoyed each other's music. So my biggest takeaway is that the Beatles broke up more because of Alan Klein than anything else. Yoko, whatever. I have to say it's Alan Klein. The management that Paul didn't want Alan Klein and the rest of the Beatles did. I think that's what really broke them up, the business side of it. I don't believe anything else. I think anything else they would have worked it out. I truly believe that after seeing this, because they said some harsh stuff and they still treated each other cordially and have fun and all that. So I believe the main thing that happened is Alan Klein and maybe some other business stuff that Paul got fed up maybe and left, or John fed up. I'm not saying. I mean, maybe it would have happened anyway without Alan Klein. But maybe it could have been a little bit more friendlier than how it actually all went down. But anyway, uh, this is a great documentary. Even if you're not a fan of the Beatles, it's interesting to see the dynamics of the group and how they worked. And it was just such an amazing ride. I enjoyed the 3 episodes so much. I just have to rewatch it then later on and just keep enjoying it. Um, but that was the biggest take on it. I think it was just that a lot of things, a lot of perspective now has changed, and I'm glad that we got to see this documentary. And what a ride it has been. Just to see them, the songs and the way they played them, Get Back, how it just got born right on the spot while Paul waited for John. He started playing the bass, and that's how Get Back got born. That was so great to see. To see them collaborating, John and Paul, that was also good. To see John helping George with something, giving him advice to how to get to the lyrics, because George was stuck on a line. So it had a lot of good things. I mean, and even the bad bits, they were heartbreaking, but at the same time, it was so captivating and intriguing just to see them work it out and just to see how it all unfolded. So anyway, that's my take on it. It's been great 3 episodes. It's been great 3 days. I was not disappointed at all about what we saw, about what I saw. And well, now I'm gonna give you follow me on www.louisrevere.com. I'm gonna do now, well, on these days, another video to talk about some other movies that I've seen this week. It has not all been Beatles, folks. I've seen a few films, so I'm going to talk about them a little bit. But that's going to come up maybe tomorrow or Monday. But I hope you enjoyed the films as much as I did. Remember, you can, give me your opinion or takes on the film on the comments. And well, have a great time or a great day, whatever you see this. And remember, I'm on Facebook, Louis Revere, or I'm on Instagram. I think I don't know how I'm on Instagram. I hear that. But anyway, I'm on YouTube. Just subscribe to my channel if you want. And I'm on Facebook, and I have a webpage, www.louisrevere.com. Okay, so now that's it for now. Bye.